Welcome to this instruction video on how to perform the flotation technique and extract fossil insect remains from organic sediments. My name is Nick Schafstal. I recently graduated from my PhD at the Czech University of Life Sciences in Prague, Czech Republic, and my specialty is fossil beetles. Subfossil beetles, or Coleoptera, are used to reconstruct changes in the landscape and climate through time. Reconstructions based on subfossil beetle records can be a few hundred years old up to 10,000s of years old and are used in climate studies, paleo-ecological studies and archaeology. I was asked to create this video on how to perform the lab techniques so that it would be easier to understand and adopt by new students. So in this video I will show you which materials you need, take you through the procedure step by step and give some additional comments during some of the steps. So let's get started. The chemicals used in this lab method are very simple. First of all, you get paraffin oil, ethanol and soap. You also need some buckets, preferably white ones, so you can see everything that is floating around in there. These buckets are a bit large and these are a bit small. Preferably I would advise buckets of 20 liters. A sink with a shower head. You can also use a garden hose. In this lab there is a sediment trap which catches all the sediment coming in the sink in this box, so all the sediment sinks to the bottom and does not clog the pipes. If you don't have such a device, you will need something to catch all the sediment that is coming out and throw it away in buckets, otherwise you will clog all your pipes. Sieves with a mesh size of at least 0.2 or maximum 0.3 millimeter. To measure the volume of your sediment, of course you need some beaker glasses. And last but not least, the lab outfit. The lab coat and safety goggles are for me mostly because I am a bit messy and I splash a lot around. But rubber gloves are a must because you'll be touching stuff with your hands and you don't want to have paraffin oil on your skin. And of course you need sediment. I would recommend at least 2 liters of sediment per sample. Then at the end of the procedure, you store your float in some containers. And if everything goes right, then at the end you have the float, hopefully with a lot of insect remains in it, which you then can pick out easily because the volume is much smaller than the whole sample. So the first step is to measure the volume of the sediment sample. Here it rose from 400 to 500, so this part of sediment is approximately 100 milliliters. You do that for the whole sediment. And then you let all the sediment rest in hot or warm water at least. So I'm going to add some more hot water and let it rest to disaggregate as much as possible. After the sample has been disaggregated, you're going to sieve all the silt out of it. You're going to do so by slowly pouring it into the sieves. Bit by bit, because even if it's aggregated properly, still a lot of silt comes out. And totally getting all the silt out might take more than an hour. So I've been sieving this for a long time and there's still small particles coming out. You really need a long time to make sure that all the small parts are gone from the sediment. Now I collected everything in one sieve. Then I will let it stand for a while. I don't know, first try 15 or 30 minutes. So that as much water as possible runs out. Now that you have let the sieve stand for a while to let as much water drain out as possible, you pick it up and you're going to put it in the bucket. Then put on your gloves and your safety goggles, because now we're going to introduce the oil. You cover the sample completely in oil, so it may take a lot of oil first. You can also mix the sample gently with your hands to mix this as much with the oil as possible. After the sample has been properly soaked and mixed with the oil, you take out the excess oil. I actually always try to save it so I can use it again. And now for the fun part, we're going to pour cold water into the bucket. First going to clean as much as possible the stuff that was still stuck to my glove, the stuff that was still stuck to the sieve. Even though it wasn't touched with oil, just get all of the sample together in there in the bucket again. Aim the water flow to the inside of the bucket to avoid air bubbles. And to emphasize again, you really want cold water and not warm water. If you would use warm water, many more things would float to the surface that you don't want them to float. You can already see all the floating things like seeds are at the surface, but also maybe some other things that normally wouldn't immediately float are now floating to the surface together with the oil. When the bucket is almost full, you're going to turn off the water and leave it. Everything that floats will keep on floating, but all the other bits will sink down to the bottom of the bucket. And depending on how long that takes, you're going to wait until you continue with the next step. See you later. I already floated these 3 samples yesterday, and as you can see, some organic debris, hopefully including a lot of insect remains of chitin, have floated up to the surface together with the paraffin oil. So now we're going to pour the float into the sieve. It's pretty heavy, that's why I would prefer a slightly smaller bucket, but you very gently let the paraffin oil layer with organic bits and bobs pour into the sieve. After a while you need to check if there's still a lot of bits floating on the paraffin oil, and you can also see how much oil is still left on the surface. Then you pour again cold water in the bucket. Top it up again for the second round of flotation. So after waiting at least 15 minutes for the second float to settle, you again take the sieve and pour whatever more is floating on the surface into the sieve, and that's then the end of the flotation. To clean the sample from the paraffin oil, you use preferably hot water and soap to wash the paraffin oil off. You should use a lot of soap, so it will also take quite a while to get rid of all the foam, and please be careful not to overflow your sieve. It's better to overdo it with the soap to rinse all the paraffin oil off than to be too quick with it, because you really want to get rid of all the paraffin oil, otherwise it will be a mess under the microscope afterwards. When you think that you got rid of all the soap from this sample, you're gonna rinse it once more, but then with ethanol, to make sure that all the excess water is gone. And this would really help to, if there's any soap left in there, to expel it together with the water. So then finally, you got your float. If all went well, then at the end you have a float which hopefully contains a lot of beetle remains, and you don't have to go again through the whole sample. Finally, I'm also saving a residue. The residue is also rinsed in oil. I will also have to clean the residue with soap before putting it back in a bag and maybe float it later, or just save it just in case. Well, and that was it. I hope that you enjoyed this instruction video and that it will be useful for you. If you got any questions or remarks, please post them below the video. And below the video you will also find the step-by-step manual of what I just shown you. Finally, if you are interested in quaternary entomology, please consider joining our Facebook group. The link is here. And good luck with your lab work.